is a checklist, and I use that pretty consistently throughout the entire process. It's really helpful. The first thing that you want to do when getting your visa is make an appointment. I put like yesterday. Obviously, not all of you are getting your visa immediately, but those of you, like once you start your spring semester right before you're going to go abroad, it's better to try and make your appointments sooner rather than later because they do fill up. And I had a friend, Karen, who also went to Madrid. She made 2, and that was actually super helpful to have a backup just for someone in the program, and you can kind of go in her place. So make your appointments for June or July. If you do it too early, it'll be hard to get certain documents. I went I think I went in the beginning of June or like at the end of May, and I didn't have a certain number on my visa for whatever reason. Anyway, just make sure that you're timing that properly.
And then I can butt in real quick right here. I read that point just because if Trisha remembers, I actually applied for my visa almost a year ago today. So I did it like the very beginning of May, and if Trisha remembers at all, it was a really bad hassle because we were rushing last minute to try and get acceptance letters from Zaragoza, and they hadn't had them out yet, and we were calling people, and it was quite a mess. So June or July, I think is an awesome time. I haven't heard of any problems with that, but don't
totally. So you have to kind of find that sweet spot, in other words.
Yes,
don't go too early, don't go too late, and make sure you have your appointments ready, and having 2 choices is a good idea. Okay, so for getting the documents, sorry,
I'll just share this so that everyone's aware who is a third-year student. You can make appointments currently. They do open appointments every day for the date 2 months from today. But they've also seen that they've been opening appointments for earlier. The consulates are currently closed, but you can still set up an appointment. So we think that it's appropriate, especially given the circumstances right now, to set up your appointment to be for June or July when we hope the consulates will be open again.
And one thing that I wanted to mention with getting your visa, you do have to go to the consulate. If you're from Arizona, you're going to the LA consulate to go to Spain, and you'll have to go back to pick up your visa. So plan for that. Make sure you're making time to go to the consulate, submit all your documents, get everything settled, and then you'll have to come back once your visa is ready to pick it up. And so just plan for that in case you have any vacations going on this summer, if you can go anywhere, all that good stuff. Cool. So the first document that you're going to want to get is the absence of police records, basically your background check. You go to that website there, enter your email, do all those things. It's pretty self-explanatory process. And then in order to get your fingerprints, I just went, if you're in Flagstaff, this is the address. It's behind the Commons. It's super easy. You just go in, you say, I'd like to get my fingerprints, getting a visa, and then they give you your little card. They make sure that it's legible. And then you have to mail that to the address provided on the FBI application. And then for your apostille, this depends on whether you get your record done by the state or the federal government. I got mine done by the federal government. And so I called someone at the office there, and she explained to me how to send it and get it sent back. So these were the first things that I did, just because they're not time sensitive. And I found it was easy to get all of the time sensitive things out of the way so that you can later stress about the time sensitive things. Especially if you have non-time sensitive things done, you can get them translated sooner rather than later, which is helpful.
Nice. And so is that Brian, did you do this part, or Alex?
Yeah, I wrote most of it.
Cool.
This is kind of the other remaining ones. Those are the big things that you need in order to get your visa. The other really large one is those translations. Basically, any type of document that you have to bring to your appointment that is in English also needs to be in Spanish. In the visa, and I guess the consulate's really picky about this as well. So they're only allowed to do certain translators that have some type of certification or something like that. There is a list on the, I forget what the website's called. It's a government website, and there is a list of translators that you can use. I'm not sure who did it through them, but there's a link of someone who does it, and they should be approved that way. And then just so you guys are aware, this part gets pretty expensive. Most translators, I do charge maybe like 10 cents a word or so many per pages or something like that, but it is going to get kind of up there, and then they usually either mail it back to you or email it back to you. And then you also need a university acceptance letter. This is why it's better to get your appointment a little bit later. This letter comes directly from the school, so it's already in, I don't know if it's in, I don't think this one needs to be translated because it should come from Spain and either be in Spanish or in both English and Spanish. And you won't have a ton of control over this because they just kind of send it to you, but do make sure that it has the dates of the full year. When I first went, finally got the document, mine only had the first semester since that was the only semester I was in school. And they didn't want to give me a visa for an extended amount of time because that document said I'd only be there 6 months. So I ended up having to like get that from the school, and then I wrote it at the bottom too. But if you ever don't have a document, the consulate, although really scary and very stressful, they're not horrible people. It was just a matter of me getting that document and actually mailing it into them, and then I had no problems beyond that. And then number 6 is your proof of funds. There's multiple ways to go around this. Some of it involves getting a scholarship and stuff like that. And they list them on the website and how to do all of them. But what worked best for me was just getting the last 3 bank statements from my family members, and then getting a notarized letter from my family saying they'll take care of me. Because while you could get like proof of your scholarship and stuff like that, that would only cover the school amount. You need so much money for like living and food and all these other things as well. So there's a list and you can figure out what works best for you and do that. The proof of health insurance, when you guys all go abroad, you should get GeoBlue through NAU, so that'll be emailed to you. You won't have to do that. And then you will need a medical certificate from your doctor. You basically just have to go get a physical, and they write up a letter saying you don't have any infectious diseases and you're healthy. And then lastly, there are fees there. I think you can write like a pay order or something like that, but the easiest way to do it is cash, and then they don't give change, so to make sure you bring exact cash. And then, like I said, although it's really nerve-wracking and kind of scary and they can be a little bit harsh to you, they are very, accepting. So if you don't have a copy or you don't have a picture, they've sent people out on the street and they say, okay, just copy it and then come right back. So it is very stressful, but don't entirely freak out. It'll all be okay.
Yeah, just to recap, we're not trying to scare you guys about all this, but it is definitely something to be taken seriously, and you guys should start making appointments and scheduling mechanisms for transportation as soon as possible, because even though you shouldn't be scared of this whole process, it's definitely something that can take up a lot of time and energy if not done on time and if not done correctly. So please just get this done as soon as possible. Tell your friends about this. This is a pretty darn complicated way to go to Spain, but we promise you we've lived through this experience. It's completely worth it. Trisha can speak for it. She's done a lot of work with us. She's helped us a ton with this whole experience. And we put our contact information at the end, for students doing the presentation. So please reach out to us because this is phenomenally difficult. I had my parents help me with it, but I promise you guys can get it done as long as you prioritize it and think about how advantageous this whole IGP experience is going to be for your educational career. So this is definitely something to take seriously and with a bit of caution, but don't be too scared by it because it will get done and you will have an amazing year abroad if you get it done.
And any roadblock that happens to you, you have our contact information and you can reach out to us and we can be like, oh yeah, that happened to us. Here's what to do.
And please do reach out because there are a lot of problems. And it is, like I said, it is really stressful, but like Noah said, it is so worth it at the end. And it is such a good feeling when you have your visa in your hand, honestly.
You're looking at it, you're like, what? This
is awesome.
Yeah, we're all here to help you. Trisha, Melissa, Emily. Trisha did a phenomenal job helping us all last year, and we're just trying to provide just a little bit more help because there's really not enough information on this whole issue. So now we're going to talk about the TIE.
So I think I wrote this one. So TIE, this was news to me. Once you get a visa, it does not last your entire time while you are in Spain, which again was news to me. Mine expired in December. So your visa is basically what you need to get into Spain. And then once you're in Spain, you use your visa and a few other documents to get this TIE. And that's a literal physical card, kind of like a driver's license, that proves that you're allowed to be in Spain for the remainder of the time. So it's slightly different for every city because this is all city government, stuff like that. So keep in mind, and again, our contacts are information. So I wrote this, so this is kind of based on Zaragoza, but they added some things as well. So the first one for this, it's not as bad as the visa process, but again, you do need to make an appointment, and those appointments kind of fill up fast. So keep that in mind. I did mine right away, but a few of my friends actually didn't hardly get their card until like a month before we left. So it is better to get it in the beginning, but you have a little bit more leeway with this. So once you make an appointment, you are going to need another application form. You just kind of fill this out. The big one that took me a long time to figure out is called an empadronamiento. This is the form that pretty much proves that you live here and where your housing is. I went to the local town hall, they gave me the form, and then you take it to your landlord, and then she knew what to do with it from there. You know, she filled out her information. It was a lot of like your passport photos, her passport, the landlord's passport photos, stuff like that. And then you get that all stamped and everything. And then you're gonna need to bring copies of everything, including your passport. You're gonna need a passport-sized photo that's gonna go on the card. And then you're also going to need a photocopy of the page of the stamp in which you entered the country. That's pretty important too. And then the last one is your matriculation, which is your proof of enrollment. The university should give this to you once you've officially enrolled in your classes. And then you do have a fee for that one too. It's just 1560 euros. And that can be done at almost any bank, and they'll give you a certificate. And so like I said, they're not as strict about the timeline. And this, I got done right away kind of when I first got there. It was within about a month or two when I first got there. And I'm not a native speaker, so I really struggled with this because it is all in Spanish and most of them didn't speak very much English. So I actually took someone that I had made a friend who was very fluent in both languages, because while I could understand some of it, I couldn't always get my point across, or I didn't entirely understand everything. So that kind of helped a bit too.
Nice job. And yeah, for Alicante specifically, just because we've been there, and I remember Jackie and I and the others got there and we pretty much had no clue what to do.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really know what a TIE was at all, or at least I didn't. And so we got there, and what you need to do is the school will actually help you out a lot. So if you go to the mobility office at La Universidad de Alicante, then they can put you in contact with someone who can help you out in order to get your TIE. And this person, Jackie, do you remember her name by any chance? I don't.
Ooh.
Yeah, okay. Neither of us remember.
Yeah,
no. but they will give you a form which has everything on it that you need to bring, and they will put you in contact with someone who will make you an appointment, and they will help you out a lot. But just to give you guys a reference, like, you guys are fortunate to be hearing about this now, because I remember when Jackie and I found out about this in Alicante, it was quite the stressor. Yeah.
yeah, and
It's quite interesting.
And to go off of that, like Mariah said, your visa will expire about 180 days after you receive it. So that's where like that sweet spot comes into play. Like if you receive it in July, it will expire like mid-December. Mm-hmm. So you have to have these appointments booked while your visa is still valid. Otherwise you can run into some problems there. So once you get to the university, it's kind of smart to start planning these next steps. I know it seems like super overwhelming, like you just did this whole visa process and now you have to do something similar again. But it really, for the folks in Alicante at least, it was very, very stressful because we couldn't get an appointment before our visa was about to expire. So we kind of hit some roadblocks right up front. But that's why we compiled this presentation for you guys, because we didn't know any of this information while we were already abroad. So this is just to help the next generation get through this.
And then one thing about the appointments, I had a vague idea of what the TIE is, and I actually made this appointment before I even left the States, which was kind of nice because I had my appointment early in October. And at least for Zaragoza, I don't know about anyone else, and this probably wasn't the correct way to do it, but my friends, on the other hand, really struggled to get the appointments, and they didn't get an appointment until after their visa had already expired. And I don't know if it's just Zaragoza and we're a little bit more laid back than other places, but they didn't have any issue. They still got their thing, even though their visa was expired. Again, probably not the way to go, and maybe make an appointment before you leave the States like I did, but it wasn't as bad as for them. It wasn't bad.
Yeah, I like that idea of making the appointment before you leave, because in Madrid, we spent a long time trying to figure out how the website worked because we thought the website was broken, but it just wouldn't tell you that there were no appointments. And then we were like, oh, maybe there are no appointments. So we had to go way far in advance and make our appointment and we were cutting it close. So yeah, I think general consensus, make this appointment when you're thinking about when you get your visa.
Yeah.
For sure. And yeah, just last time, well, probably not the last time, but once again, the staff in the program, such as Trisha and Marcella, really helped us, and Melissa, of course, really helped us figure out this whole process. So if you're there and confused, you can just do the same thing as us, and you can email them, and they will definitely help you the way that they helped us. So thanks, guys. Okay, so.
All right.
Sorry, I thought you made this one.
This is kind of the fun part where we get to tell you guys about some of the cities that we got to call our study abroad destinations. So California is the nickname that the people of Alicante gave to the town because it is basically Spain's version of California. And that's the best way I can think of describing it to new people. It's a beach town. It's along the coast. So I know I kind of chose these pictures just to show you a little bit of the atmosphere. Like after you got all these documents, like what do you have to look forward to? So the vibe in Alicante is very vacation-y, very relaxed, very sunny, warm most of the year. That being said, I just want to stress for those who chose to go to Alicante, like you're going to love it. It's going to be a great time. But it isn't necessarily like that quintessential like Spain feeling when you arrive. It's different from like Madrid or like Barcelona, some of those bigger cities. So I really encourage traveling like outside of Alicante if you want to really embrace Spain. But I just threw up some of these pictures to get you guys excited, like get you through these visa and TIE processes and see like what's on the other side, and just get excited for your experience and like getting to speak Spanish with some of these locals. Like it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, we're definitely done with the boring, troubling part of the presentation. And so after you figure all this stuff out, and while you're figuring this stuff out, if you're all four of us, you'll have the opportunity to really get a sense of the area. And just like Jackie said, Alicante is beautiful, but if you really want to grasp Spain, you have to travel around to even the littler cities around it. And of course, you can't miss Madrid, Barcelona. I didn't make it to Zaragoza, but I've heard great things.
My heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so more about Alicante. Basically, when we got there, Jackie, Jordan, and Duranda and I, we got an Airbnb for I think it was like a few months, wasn't it? Something like that.
The first full month for sure.
Okay, yeah, it was at least the first full month. We got an Airbnb so that we could figure out what we were going to do as far as living goes for the rest of the year. And so basically we didn't know much about what to do before we got there in terms of living, but what we learned is that the best website, at least for Alicante to use, and online it says that it's the best website in Spain to use for housing, is Idealista. And so that's what I know that Duranda used that, and I'm pretty sure you guys used that too. Did you not, Jackie?
Yeah, we did actually a lot.
Yeah, you guys use Idealista. I found some places on Idealista as well. And it's just a really way to get in contact with landlords, to find good property, to find good locations. And so I would recommend waiting, or I mean, you could actually do it either way. What we did, obviously, is that we waited and got an Airbnb. But if you want to look at the options that there are in Alicante or in pretty much any part of Spain, then go on Idealista now and try and find a nice place to live. And I think that one of the reasons that I waited is that I hadn't, of course, gotten a good sense of the city because I hadn't been there. And so I found it advantageous to kind of map out where I want to live and then find a location close to there using the website. So that's what really worked for me. Now, the interesting thing about Alicante is that the university itself is in a different city, which is about 20 minutes north of Alicante by tram. Now, it's technically a different city, but it's connected by buildings and everything. The town is called San Vicente, and that's where the university is located. And so when we got there, we were debating whether or not we should live in Alicante, which was a 20-minute tram ride from the university, or in San Vicente itself, which would, of course, not make us have to walk to school. But what we learned is that Alicante is the best place to live. And I think that Jackie would agree with me when I strongly recommend to you guys that you live in Alicante, because the transportation between San Vicente and Alicante is very limited at night. And Alicante is more of a Spanish experience, and you're more likely to be surrounded by the culture and the language if you live, especially in the center of the city next to where Jackie and I lived. Another thing is that a large Erasmus community or a large study abroad community is present in Alicante and is not present in San Vicente. And so basically studies have shown that when you get to a study abroad location, you're most likely to primarily make friends with other study abroad students. And that's exactly what we did. When we got there, we found people from Finland, from all parts of Europe, from all over the place, from Africa. And they were all living in Alicante, very close to us, which gave us the opportunity to hang out with them and kind of gave us our first social circle, which is really important when you're trying to fit into a different atmosphere. And so these are all good reasons to live in Alicante as opposed to San Vicente, even though San Vicente is very tempting because it's very close to the school. You want to take this, Jackie?
Oh, sure. Okay. So what Noah was saying about the tram ride between the two locations, if you see down on the map in like the lower right hand corner, that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about here. So at the very top of that green path, that's where the university is located. But down where it says Alicante, that's like the heart of the city. That's where all like the restaurants and all like the major businesses you'll need to go to are located. So it's a sizable distance, but that being said, really to get your best experience, you need to live in the Alicante city, and you should be smart, unlike we were at the Airbnb, and pick a place to live that is near a tram stop. This will make a huge difference for you guys, and you will only know this like once you kind of get your feet wet in the region. But that being said, once you get the hang of it, it's actually a really, really easy transportation system. The entire transportation network kind of relies on one rechargeable card that you can use for all the bus lines and the tram lines as well. So it's very handy. You don't have to carry around like exact change with you. It's very simple. And the line 2 specifically will take you from this Alicante city center like right to the steps of the university. Like in that picture above, like you can see the tram line run right in front of the sign for the university. So it'll drop you right there because it knows, I think, that there's a ton of students relying upon this tram line who live in the Alicante Center. So don't stress about getting around. Like the city layout is very ergonomic, and I think it's really meant for like a student body. And in the city itself, as in addition to the tram lines, there's buses that can get you anywhere. It's easy to Google like bus routes that go more like specific places as opposed to just like major long routes that the trams can take you on. And don't discount the bike option. I know people who would ride their bike from Alicante to San Vicente. It'd take them like 20, 30 minutes, and it would kind of suck when it rained, but it's doable, and the city's very walkable. So transportation in Alicante, it's very doable for anybody.
For sure. Yeah, when we got there, it just kind of felt like we had no clue how to get around. And so just remember, if you can, live close to a tram, bus stop. And just if you ever want to reference this PowerPoint to find out where to go, we send it to you. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So I lived in Zaragoza, Spain. I don't have any super fun pictures about it like California, but I think a lot of IGP students kind of forget about Zaragoza because it's not super on the beach or in the heart of Madrid. It is pretty much smack in between Barcelona and Madrid, which makes traveling really easy. But because everyone kind of forgets about it, it truly, truly is a Spanish experience. Most of the people there have lived there their whole lives. And it's very, brick walkways, brick buildings. Everyone goes out for tapas every night. There's beer on every corner. It is a true Spanish city, which I loved about that. And within the city, although the city has just under 1 million people, it feels very, very local, and everything is pretty much very close connected. So as far as living goes, the red arrow is actually pointed at where the university is, and then that yellow arrow is pointed about kind of where the heart of the city is, and all the nightlife and big exciting stuff. Both me and the other 2 girls who were with me chose to live right next to the university. I was right on that yellow line, which put me right on the Tranvia line, which is our tram, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then the girls actually lived in Delicias on the other side of the university, which was nice. So as far as class goes, it took me maybe 5 minutes, probably less, to get to most of my classes, which was awesome. And then if you wanted to walk down to the city life, it usually took you around 30 minutes, sometimes only 20, which was totally doable. It sounds like a lot living in America, but honestly, walking 30 minutes in Europe was like, oh, that's nothing. But again, there's so much transportation. So if you chose to live anywhere in between those 2 lines, you really won't go wrong. I know it gets a little bit more expensive as you live towards the city life, but truly, I mean, people are spread out all across the city. So there's that one. And then this is actually a picture, I didn't take it, but of where I lived. So I lived in the building on the left right there. And then straight down that street is where our Tranvia runs, which is our tram system that will take you all around the city. And ironically, I'd never heard of Idealista before. So I actually found my housing on erasmusu.com. It's a website only for Erasmus students or study abroad students in Europe. And there's tons of housing options on there. And what I chose to do is actually book a place before I even got to the city and saw it. There was a lot of risk in that because I didn't quite know where it was or what it looked like entirely. But as soon as I got there, I was able to drop my bags and just completely unpack, and I stayed there for the entire amount of time, which was awesome. And then because the other rooms are offered up on that site, I ended up living with some people from England, a couple Germans, an Italian, a girl from the Netherlands, along with a couple actual Spaniards who lived there for a while too. But the friends I was with, they did the same thing. They rented an Airbnb for a while, and then they found a lease or a place to live that way. But the problem they kept running into was the typical things you would do when you get in a new place. So like they didn't have a bank account, which was kind of difficult to find housing when you don't have a bank account in there. And then they kind of had to set up their own Wi-Fi too. But they were native Spanish speakers, but those problems were a little bit too far out of my comfort zone. So I was really happy with where I did. And then the university is actually located just outside of this picture. So again, I was like at the front gates of it, which was awesome. And then if you want to go to the next slide. We'll see if my video plays. This is the videos of the Pilar. It's this huge basilica that we have in the city. And it's a very, very classic Spanish town. So it's a religious basilica, but that's at the heart of the city. The whole city revolves around that. And so our main transportation system, again, is the Tranvia. It runs almost a straight line all the way through the city, and it's very quick. So if you chose to take that from where I live down to that basilica, was honestly like 10 minutes, if not less. So that was super easy. And again, you could get that physical card, and all you had to redo was reload it, and then you could just swipe it whenever you got on and off, and that was super easy. Zaragoza also has a huge bus map that's extremely extensive. So my friends lived, they didn't live near the Tranvia, but they took buses and they had no problem with that either. So that was super easy. And then, like I said, while the city itself is really large, everything you need is very close together. I mean, my grocery store was 3 minutes away. Any nightlife we wanted to do was, a 10-minute ride, and then you're with your friends and you can walk around. Some kids I know bought bikes, and the city is very much bike friendly. I never felt the need to. I prefer just walking, plus I get to see the city more that way. And then there are tons of taxis all over. They're a little bit expensive, of course, but those are reliable as well. So if you have any more questions about my beautiful Zaragoza, our contact info is at the end. So
cool.
Cool. So I didn't put any pictures, sorry, but it basically looks similar to what they were showing. Just think, I guess Madrid you could relate to like the New York of Spain. I don't know, but smaller. Like it has a smaller feel than that. But the thing that you need to know specifically about Madrid is similar to Alicante. Madrid city center and the university are about a 40-minute metro ride away from each other. So Getafe, the town where the university is located, is essentially a suburb of Madrid. And we chose to live out there. The only thing we had ever heard before when we were going to Madrid was the guy before us had lived in El Centro, in the center of the city, and he said to live there. But the thing that we found was that it was really, really expensive to live in the city center, and we just had smaller budgets, so we chose to live in Getafe. So you can read all of this. There's a lot of words, but that's basically the specifics of it. El Centro, obviously, you're going to be closer to a lot of nightlife. You're going to be closer to shopping. You're going to be closer to all of these things. Honestly, Madrid is a very international city. So like living in the city center, if you're living in Sol, which is like, boom, pin drop, that's Madrid, you're basically surrounded by things that you would find in any city around the world. So if you really want a truly Spanish experience, I would get a little bit out of that area. You don't need to go all the way to Getafe to get a authentic experience, because there's a lot of really cool neighborhoods in Madrid. So if you're more into the experience of the city and going out and shopping and stuff like that, I would say live in Madrid. But anyway, in Getafe, it's a lot quieter. It's a suburb. You won't find as much. It's more of a close-knit community. We lived just a street over from the university, which was amazing, because we didn't want to do that 40-minute metro ride every single day. We did the same thing. We got an Airbnb when we first got there, and we were looking around for, where we really wanted to live. And we ended up finding our apartment on Idealista. Here's just a couple more things to know about Madrid. I listed each of the biggest neighborhood names that you might hear when you're looking, if you decide to try and look around a little bit before you get there. Those are the neighborhoods. Madrid is very, like I said, it's an international city, and a lot of the neighborhoods are super fun and hip. Most of those, I said that they were like vintage or hip or colorful at some point. So all of the neighborhoods in Madrid are really cute. Chueca is my favorite neighborhood. Just a note, for Madrid, the metro's not ADA friendly at all. So when you get there with your luggage for the first time, I remember that being a huge issue. Maybe you want to take an Uber, and they do have Uber in Madrid. So, but the metro is incredible. Other than the ADA friendly part, the metro is the best. I wish we had a metro in every city in America that was like the Madrid metro. It's super easy to navigate. Again, you get your abono, your refillable card. It's $20 a month for a student. It has your picture on it and everything, so you can't like lose it, or anyone can't steal it. So that's really great, and it's super easy to get around. Oh yeah, and then I just did this random tips and tricks for Spain, just something fun for you guys to maybe learn a little bit more about how Spain is, what the vibe of Spain is. I put some phrases they use that we learned. And don't be scared by vosotros. It's not scary. You basically pick it up really quickly. So yeah, that was just this slide. Obviously you can read yourself, but just something to try and get you excited about Spain in particular, as opposed to different countries if you're, looking between two.
Cool. Well, yeah, one thing that I just wanted to share real quick, and the three of you guys can pipe in if you think that I'm absolutely wrong, so let me know. But I regret not living with local people, even though I was encouraged to do so by the famous Benito Tiki. I was encouraged to live with local people, but I found some good friends that I wanted to live with, and I developed a pretty cool British accent. But I think that my Spanish would have gotten better, a lot better, if I would have chosen to live with locals instead of other international students who spoke English. Just a really good way to really understand the language and gain a different perspective. So just keep that in mind as well.
That's a really good point. Benito told me that too. And I became really good friends with the other two girls that I traveled to Zaragoza with, but we did not live with each other, mostly because I wanted a different experience. So my housing, like I said, I found it through an Erasmus website, but it was a 6-bedroom, which was really large for at least Zaragoza and probably Spain. And it was kind of fun because while I wasn't with my US friends, I was either with a constantly changing group of international people, which changed throughout the semester because their study abroads are usually only a semester. So I got a new wave the second time. But I actually did live with a couple Spaniards. They were a little bit older, and they worked in the hospital because Zaragoza has a very big medical presence. So if you're biomed, think about that. And that was a really awesome experience. Like she was, I think she was in her 30s or 40s, but she was definitely like our little mom. Like she helped us take care of the apartment. And I ran into her in a grocery store and I was like, I don't understand this. And she like helped me through it. And we'd watch the news together at night. So there is definitely something to be gained from living with Spaniards. But even if you're not with Spaniards, I would encourage you to like step outside of your comfort zone and not necessarily live with your friends. You know, I saw my friends all the time. We'd be there all the time, but I did meet a lot of other people by living away from them.
And I'm going to add something a little bit.
Please.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
So in Alicante specifically, a problem that you might encounter is that all the local people tend to live in San Vicente, and you might not be aware, but it's a very cultural thing in Spain to live with your parents until you're like way into your 20s, sometimes even your 30s. So all these kids literally live at home with their parents. So if you choose to live in the city, like we all did, your choice of roommates are going to be a lot of international Erasmus students. And those people are like those are going to be your best friends. So it might be scary to show up and choose to live with complete strangers, but even if they're not local students, your immersion experience will still be greatly enhanced by living with people who you didn't know showing up into Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Another thing too, and Jackie could share this because I know we talked about it. It can be really difficult to meet local friends because like when you get there, there's a pretty big language barrier and there's a big cultural barrier. And a lot of the people that you'll meet at university already have cliques of students who they've already hung out with for years. And so it can be really difficult to adjust to that kind of cultural environment. And so the only reason I'm saying this is just, no, please don't get discouraged if this does happen to you. Like, I hope it doesn't, but we all went through it and we all eventually made Spanish friends who contributed to our learning and to our experiences abroad. And so please just don't get discouraged if that happens, because the same thing happened to us. It's not like people don't like you. It's just that it's really difficult to meet friends who aren't travelers in a different country. And it really just comes off as a shock at first. So I just wanted to warn you guys. That's pretty much it.
I don't know if Madrid or Alicante had this program, but in Zaragoza, and it might have been through our university, but there was a buddy program. And so you would input your information and you would say like, hey, I'm an Erasmus student. I need help when I first got there. And that was kind of how my friend group formed. And so I became really good friends with this guy who was my buddy, who had lived in Zaragoza for the past 14 years. And he was like, oh, come here, come meet my girlfriend. She was actually from Italy, but then it's like, oh, meet my friend from Zaragoza, meet my friend from Barcelona. And so while we had a large Erasmus present in our friend group, we also had a good balance of Spaniards. But that being said, bouncing off Noah, I think I knew 3 or 4 people who were actually born and raised in Zaragoza. I mean, of the majority of the people I met, most of them were from somewhere else in Europe.
Yep, that's true. It happens. But yeah, here's our contact information. If you guys need anything, and you guys already have the administration's contact information. So thank you for sitting through this with us. As you can tell, we all had pretty different experiences that were very geography-based and culture-based. But we all had a lot of fun. And so regardless of wherever you choose, we have faith that you will absolutely adapt to your environment and that you'll learn a lot from your experience. And so, do you guys have anything to add? Trisha, Melissa, Emily?
Did anyone have any questions? Like while we're here right now?
Good question.
Yeah, let's open it up for questions.
Yeah.
I know there's only like 6 of us, but
I have
So I
one.
do have a question. Will this PowerPoint be posted somewhere in the IGP course shell or something so we can go back to some of these links?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm gonna ask Noah if he wouldn't mind to post it in the Spanish group area so that everyone can see it.
Cool.
Sweet, thank you.
Some of these links, for example, the visa information, I'll be sending out to you when you are preparing to leave. So you will get more detailed information as the time gets closer and it's more appropriate to be actually moving forward.
Cool.
I think you had a question, Carlissa.
Yeah. When you guys actually like went to Spain, what was, I guess, the school year? I know you guys got to like cut short, but when did you guys actually start school, and how long is like the academic year and all that?
I think that we started somewhere close to September 9th. Does that sound right
Yeah,
to you
I
guys?
have it written down in my planner actually. Like the first days of orientation were like the first week of September. So we
Yeah.
arrived like a whole week and a half early and had absolutely nothing to do.
Which was amazing.
Yeah, it was the worst for sure. But like September 5th, maybe, say around there.
Yeah. I would recommend getting there honestly about, I don't know, you guys can comment on this, but I would get there around 2 to 3 weeks early just to be exposed to everything, just to get a sense of the city, go tour the university on your own, even if it's not open, ride the metro, see what stops there are, just get used to everything and like enjoy how wonderful the city is before you're thrown into the more organizational culture aspect.
And then for the schedule for Zaragoza, I got there about a month early, so I was there with plenty of time to do everything I wanted to and meet everyone and do that, which again, I would recommend getting there early. But we started in September as well. And then you actually don't finish your finals, at least in Zaragoza, until February. The beginning of February was my last final. I called it finals month because you had all your finals were about 1 week apart, but it lasted about a month. And so you didn't have classes anymore, but everyone was just studying for finals. And then the next semester started in February. And then my internship was actually through the School of Medicine at a hospital. So I started and was planning on finishing as the school went, and started mid-February. And then I think we were projected about June. Either the beginning, I think finals was all throughout June. So that's kind of what you can expect to be like September to June.
Cool.
And with us.
If that answers.
Classes, they gave us the opportunity, if we were international students, to take our finals early. So we just did that, and we had our finals in the normal week in December that we have our finals at NAU, I think like in the early teens of December. And then we just and normal students were having their finals in January. But we got out of that, and so we were just traveling at that time, which is awesome.
Yep. Anything else? We were ready for hundreds of questions. No,
Did you guys travel a lot? Like, did you guys go to other countries, anything like that, or did you guys kind of stay in Spain?
I actually chose to go to Spain because I wanted to travel around in Europe. So yeah, it's so shockingly cheap to fly to other countries in Europe. Like I never paid more than $100 for a plane ticket. You can look on, I mean, there's lots of cheap websites that you can find, like Ryanair. They have an Erasmus student discount where you can get like a free check bag if you register as an Erasmus student. So that's really nice. But yeah, I think most of us did a lot of traveling, and I definitely went to other countries.
I did a lot of traveling throughout Spain in the first semester, which was a really awesome experience. I think a lot of people forget that Spain is huge. So the first semester I spent a lot of time doing that. I mean, the only one I didn't hit was Madrid, which we had actually planned a trip like a week before we left, but Anywhere from like Ibiza is in Spain, and that's a really beautiful island, and it's a lot of fun. But there's a lot of really cool cities along the coast, and especially in Andalusia. So don't forget about those too. Although, like she said, it's awesome to travel throughout Europe. So especially over winter break if you're not studying for the finals like I was, but we made it work.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of Allison really quick. For any of you who this is your first time ever leaving the country, that was me. So I obviously chose to go to Spain because I wanted to go to as many countries as possible, given this was my first like maiden voyage out of the US. So I ended up going to 7 countries, including Spain, and that was like truncated because I had more planned until the situation hit. But it's very possible to like go to a new country every month, because in Europe, traveling to a new country is like traveling to a new state. In the US, it's like a 2-3 hour like plane ride. It's really quick, really easy. So highly recommend doing it. It's very doable, especially in the beginning of your school year and maybe during your internship if your schedule kind of permits it. But I mean, you're going to Spain, so you might as well like hit up the neighboring countries. It'll just enhance your experience.
And for us, it was remarkably easy too. Not only was that, but there's a lot of holidays, a lot of 3-day weekends, and we hit a lot of countries where it's like, hey, we have 3 days off, let's go to France, and came back because it was so cheap. And then hostels are amazing too. So
yeah, it's also really cheap to rent cars, at least in Spain. And so if you really want to take a gander at the countryside or at some cities close to wherever you decide to go, you can rent a car for way cheaper than in the United States, and you can drive around with some buddies, and that's super fun because it really exposes you to the more geographical features of the country, which is really neat. Any more?
Did any of you guys ever open up a bank account in Spain, or did you guys just use what you had back home? How did that work with like the money?
Yeah, money was a big thing, at least for the group that I was with. What we all did, we all got like a travel credit card, and we were using that because then like over winter break, one of my friends used all the points that she had racked up and she went on a trip. So having a travel credit card is really nice, and making sure that it's the type of card that, being a travel card, it'll probably be like a Visa or whatever, and it'll be accepted at the majority of places that you show up. One person that I was living with got their Spanish bank account because it was required to get our apartment and our utilities set up. We still haven't closed it because we have to get our rent refunded, but it was more or less, I don't want to say easy, but it was more or less navigatable to open a bank account, and it worked out fine in the end when we had to do it. So
I think a lot of American banks will also have partners in Europe. I never opened one out, but I think our bank had a partner, and so they at least reduced some of the fees. And so I would go up and just pull a couple €100 at a time, and that would last me, a month. And that's a really good way for me to budget, because a lot of small things, especially I would assume in the rest of Spain, they want you to pay in cash, especially if it's like 1 to 10 euros. So that's definitely what I did, but I had no problems.
Yeah, like what Mariah said, don't be afraid of taking out euros. I, for some reason, had the impression that it was going to be really difficult and impossible to take euros out of the bank account, but I just would like put in my debit card, and it would cost me $5. I have a Wells Fargo. It cost me $5, and Wells Fargo was like, oh, she's in a different country, and I still could take out euros. Like, it was totally fine. It wasn't dramatic in any way.
I'm just going to chime in. I just wrote in the chat box, but I have another call to jump on. Thank you so much to all the facilitators. Feel free to continue the conversation. I'll send out the recording, but keep asking questions and continuing the dialogue. This is really wonderful, and it's great to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you for being here as well.
Of course. reach out if you need anything, especially you year 3 and 4 folks. So we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Trisha.
I'll see you soon too, Melissa.
I know. Thank you so much for participating in this. Thank you, Allison, Noah,